Rare Cancers Bill.
Before we begin, I have a few preliminary reminders for the committee. Please switch electronic devices to silent. No food or drinks are permitted during sittings of the committee except for the water provided. Hansard colleagues would be grateful if members could email their speaking notes to hansardnotes@parliament.uk. My selection and grouping for today's meeting is available online as well as in the room, and there will be a single debate on all of the clauses of the bill. We begin with Clause 1, with which it will be convenient to consider Clauses 2 to 6. The question is that Clause 1 stand part of the bill, and I call Dr. Scott Arthur.
Thank you. It is a pleasure to serve under your chairship today, Mr. Stewart. So I was very happy to see the unanimous cross-party support this bill received during its second reading, and I look forward to examining the bill in detail today. The term rare cancer might imply that this is a relatively niche issue, which is unlikely to impact on many of us. The reality is that 47% of cancers diagnosed in the UK fall within the rare and less common category, and they account for 55% of all cancer deaths. This second statistic is partly due to the survival rate. 5 out of 6 less survivable cancers are also rare cancers. But survivability is not just a function of the aggressiveness of the cancer. It also depends on the treatment options available, and for less survivable cancers, the options are limited. They receive a mere fraction of the roughly 16% of the funding that more survivable cancers receive. And at this point, I should just clarify, I've had some contact from a charity representing younger people, and it is the case that this bill does cover younger people and that all childhood cancers are rare. So the current situation is unlikely to change without government intervention. Markets encourage pharmaceutical companies to prioritise the highest return on investment, and inevitably that favours the development of drugs with the largest potential patient pools. When a company does pursue taking a rare cancer drug to market, accessing a limited patient pool can make the creation of sufficiently robust studies and trials a struggle. This bill is an attempt to intervene on behalf of patients and their families, and to enable pharmaceutical companies and the government to re-evaluate the current strategies for funding, research and finding treatments. It has been carefully drafted in consultation with a wide range of cancer charities, and I'm really pleased to see a few of them represented in the room today, and expert bodies, and reflects the solutions that scientists, doctors and those with lived experience think are necessary. In practical terms, by passing this legislation, we can firstly remove the barriers to participation in potentially life-saving clinical trials. Secondly, drive investment in under-resourced yet vital drugs and treatments. And thirdly, enhance connectivity between various organisations and individuals working to find cures. And this is an incredibly important point. I've attended many meetings of the Brain Tumour APPG, chaired by my colleague, the member for Mitcham and Moordam, and quite often we see that those connections aren't really being made, and we all lose as a result of that. Madam Chairman, I would now like to move on to the clauses within the bill, and I'll go through them one by one. Clause 1. Clause 1 will enable regulations to be made which compel the Secretary of State for Health and Social Care to conduct a review of our marketing authorisations for orphan medicinal products that are for the diagnosis, prevention or treatment of cancer, and prepare and publish a report setting out the conclusions of that review. So I'm never a great fan of the term orphan drugs, so this really refers to drugs for rare conditions. This clause also includes provisions that the review process will specifically consider the regulatory approaches adopted in other countries. This will help avoid research and patients in this country losing out. The clause also sets a time frame for the publication of the report, namely within 3 years from the bill being passed. So we consulted broadly on the 3-year point, and obviously all of us want to see progress in this issue as quickly as possible. We have to balance that off the need for the review to be authoritative and impactful. So that's where the 3 years come from, but I do recognise that some people want that to move faster. A review of best practice at international level should surface a variety of effective strategies which the government could consider implementing in order to drive the pharmaceutical industry investment into life-saving research and treatments. Clause 2. Clause 2 will enable regulations to be made which will encourage the Secretary of State to facilitate or otherwise promote research into rare cancers. Provisions within this clause will specify that the Secretary of State must ensure arrangements are in place which will firstly enable potential participants in clinical trials to be identified and contacted, and secondly ensure that a person to be known as the National Speciality Lead for Rare Cancers, NSLRC, quite catchily, is appointed to promote and facilitate research into rare cancers. This person will hold an advisory role and facilitatory role, offering input on the design and planning of research, as well as building collaborative networks between key bodies and individuals. Appointing a specific individual to hold this role will provide a structure for greater accountability, as well as a more strategic approach for the delivery of rare cancer research across different organisations. Clause 3. Clause 3 will enable regulations to be made which will facilitate data sharing in the context of contacting and identifying potential participants in clinical trials focused on orphan medicinal products for diagnosis, prevention and/or treatment of rare cancers. This clause does not authorise the processing of information which would contravene existing data protection legislation. The twin benefits to enhanced data sharing are a greater access for patients to clinical trials, which could be life-saving, and more higher quality trials as a result taking place in the UK for a larger potential participant population for researchers. Clause 4. This explains the territorial extent of the various clauses. Clause 2 and 3 will extend to England and Wales only, while the remainder of the bill extends to England, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland. Where the bill does not extend to the entirety of the UK, we have been assured by the devolved governments, which were consulted during the formulation of this bill, and I do thank DHSC colleagues for that they will work alongside us to achieve the policy goals outlines within the context of their unique legal landscapes. In this regard, I do want to acknowledge the work of the Honourable Member for South Antrim to ensure Northern Ireland generally and his constituents specifically benefit from this bill. Clause 5 will provide for commencement. This will occur at a point 2 months after the bill is passed. Clause 6 gives the short title of the bill. So just to draw to a conclusion, Mr Chair, I do hope this bill has real impact, because I know so many people, charity sectors, etc., are working so hard to raise small amounts of money often, which they hope have big impact. And I hope this bill amplifies their work and helps it go further. In conclusion, I look forward to the committee members' contribution to the discussion of this important bill, and I commend these clauses to the committee. Thank you, Chair.
Robin Swan.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairship this morning. And first of all, can I thank and congratulate the Honourable Member for Edinburgh South West for bringing this private member's bill, which will have life-changing effects for many individuals across the entirety of the United Kingdom, and applaud him for doing it, because I know some of the driving reasons behind him doing that today, so I congratulate him for doing that. Mr Stewart, just in regards to a couple of points in regards to the bill, fully supportive, and I note the geographical challenge that it does bring, but I do note that the Northern Ireland Assembly on Monday passed the legislative consent motion for Clause 1, so already getting in step in line for this, because much of the work of this was actually involved in our Northern Ireland Cancer Strategy, published in 2022 when I was actually Minister at the time for Health. So it did look at the challenges that we specifically have in regards to research and those clinical trials, because at that point it was highlighted by cancer charities over there that in Northern Ireland only 15% of cancer patients come forward or are offered the opportunity to take part in cancer trials, where across the rest of the UK it's 31%. So I do hope by bringing this bill forward that actually increases the awareness and increases the ability for Northern Ireland patients and cancer sufferers and their families to be aware of what is there at that point as well. The other concern that is often raised by some of my Northern Ireland colleagues, Mr Stewart, and you're aware of it, is the EU implications. But I can state that under regards for novel treatments, those don't fall under the scope of the EU. So hopefully any medication, any treatment, any supply that does come forward will be equally accessible and applicable to the entirety of Northern Ireland. The only difficulty and challenge that we have in progressing some of the rest of this bill is actually the legislation that allows Northern Ireland the use of secondary data for cancer registries. But I am aware that the current Health Minister and my party colleague has a one-clause bill ready to move forward and rectify that. So, Mr Stewart, just a small contribution in regards to, in support of the work that the Honourable Member for Edinburgh South West has done in bringing this forward, and it has been a pleasure to be asked to serve on this committee.
Shadow Minister, Dr Caroline Johnson.
Thank you, Chair, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship this morning, Mr Stewart. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate the member for Edinburgh South West on bringing this very important piece of legislation forward. I should declare an interest as a consultant paediatrician who has looked after a number of children with rare conditions like teratoma, rhabdomyosarcoma, Wilms tumour and retinoblastoma, to name but a few. And one of the issues with rare cancers that transposes to rare diseases in general is that they often are diagnosed late because people don't recognise that they have the symptoms of a rare disease, and their health professionals are not as familiar with those diseases because they are, as I said, rare. And so the presentation is late and the diagnosis is late, and as such the treatment is more difficult. That is compounded further because there is less research on those topics, and so it's not as clear as it might be what the best treatment for those conditions is. And then on top of that, the patient may have to travel very long distances to see a specialist who is familiar with the condition, adding both logistic difficulty and cost to that patient's care. Now, there are some steps in place to try and improve that. The orphan drug regime does give a market exclusivity for 10 years and does give lower and in fact refunded fees from the MHRA for the services that they provide. But still, it can be very non-commercially advantageous to put your money into developing a drug that's going to be used on no more than a handful of people, however beneficial it is for those individuals concerned. So I welcome this bill and the clauses within it. I just wanted to make a couple of points. Firstly, that it is best, in principle, that trials are first broached with a patient by their member of their healthcare team. But of course, a member of a given healthcare team, and I speak as one myself, is never going to be aware of all of the trials available to all of the patients at all of the time. And so I welcome the short load O'Shaughnessy review that was commissioned by the last government and has been accepted by this one, which talks about getting a consensus on how best patients can be informed of trials. And I wonder if perhaps a system where patients opt out not of the trial, but of being asked about trials, where they're asked, would you like to receive information on trials, yes or no, at the outset, so that more people can be aware of how they can contribute. And it's very often the case that when people are diagnosed with something rare, they do want to contribute to helping others that will come after them. I also wanted to ask the Minister about the National Cancer Plan, which was consulted on earlier this year, to when we will hear a little bit more about that, and welcome the fact that the Children and Young Persons Task Force that was paused is being reinstituted. Another question for the Minister is just really about how this will apply to repurposed drugs, because sometimes medicines are developed as new medicines for a particular condition, but very often we find that medicines can be reformulated in a particular way, used in a different way, perhaps provided as in a different form of treatment, so that it can help individuals with a different condition. And how will that apply to the measures in this bill and also to measures in the assurance review? I'm very pleased as a paediatrician that this applies to children, so I want to welcome the fact that that's been included in this bill. Overall, I think this bill is great. It offers hope for many in the future. There is a question in my mind for the Minister as well about other rare conditions, because there are rare cancers, but there are also other rare conditions that people get, and they are also affected by the same sort of challenges with research and treatment and delays in diagnosis and travel that are rare cancers. So I would mention what the Minister plans to do about that. But overall, doctors are able to save people's lives and improve people's lives one at a time, but Parliament and research offers the opportunity to do that on a much bigger scale, and I'm very grateful to the Honourable Member for Edinburgh South West for what he's doing today.
Minister.
Thank you, Chair. So it's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship this morning, Mr Stewart. And I want to start by congratulating my honourable friend, the member for Edinburgh South West, on his bill reaching committee stage, which is a huge achievement for a colleague, any colleague, but also for a colleague that has served in this place for almost exactly a year today. This government welcomes contributions from backbenchers. We welcome effective scrutiny from committees, and we value the vital role that Parliament plays in holding us to account. In April, my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, announced that clinical trials will be fast-tracked to accelerate the development of the medicines and therapies of the future. Through this new drive, patients will have improved access to new treatments and technologies, and we see this bill as contributing to that ambition. And we want to go further for patients with rare cancers, and this legislation will act to incentivise recruitment, oversight and accessibility of rare cancer research, so that NHS patients are at the front of the queue for cutting-edge treatments. Clause 1 of the bill will ensure our regulatory competitiveness. It places a duty on the government to publish a review of the legislation around orphan drugs within 3 years of this bill becoming an act. The review will examine our legal framework and compare our approach to our international partners. And we want the UK to lead the world in this space as the prime destination for clinical research. Moving on to Clause 2, which raises the profile of the research for rare cancers, placing a new duty on the Secretary of State for Health and Social Care to facilitate and otherwise promote research in this area. The government wants to give patients greater choice and control over their healthcare, and rare cancer patients should have access to research if they choose. Clause 2 also ensures the government will develop a bespoke registry service for rare cancers to be delivered through the Be Part of Research programme, our groundbreaking research registry service provided by the National Institute for Health and Care Research. And 2, to appoint a national specialty lead for rare cancers, which we will designate with the NIHR Research Delivery Network, who will have oversight of the overall portfolio of rare cancer studies in England. And now I will speak to Clause 3. The government is committed to going further for rare cancer patients, and that means making clinical trials more accessible. Clause 3 of this bill will introduce an innovative solution to allow rare cancer patients to be contacted as quickly as possible about clinical research. And Clause 3 creates a new power to allow patient data to be shared from NHS England information systems.
Would the Minister give way?
I will.
Would the Minister agree with me that keeping a list of people with rare cancers is only any use as long as there are some drug trials? Last night we launched the first trial in my sister's memory for glioblastoma. Every penny raised by people donating, having bake sales and running marathons. Is that any way to tackle rare cancer?
I thank my honourable friend for her intervention and congratulate her on the launch of the trial yesterday in her sister's name. We do want to see more research and trials coming forward, particularly for rare cancers. And my honourable friend will be aware of the consortium that the department has developed in order to work directly with the brain tumour community in particular to improve the quality and the number of research trials coming forward for funding. And I'll be able to report on that. I'm happy to.
Thank you to the Minister for giving way. My Yorkshire constituency, constituencies in Yorkshire where I am do particularly poorly with research funding. I think 5% of research funding for cancer trials goes to the area. I hope that with this bill and with a renewed focus on cancer, we're going to look more at expanding the research and research active hospitals to give people throughout the country a better chance.
Minister.
I thank my honourable friend for his intervention. Just clarify that there is no regional specificity in terms of the allocation of research funding, and we welcome funding bids, all funding bids looking at cancer and rare cancers from anywhere in the country, and would encourage them to come forward. The new power allowing patient data to be shared from NHS England information systems will allow more patients to be contacted about existing trials, and practically it will allow us to join up data from the National Disease Registration Service to be part of research. And as I've said, Chair, we are encouraging people to bring forward more research proposals, all of which are considered. But for the first time, patients with a rare cancer could be automatically contacted about research opportunities that are relevant to them and offered innovative new treatments. And that means rare cancer patients could have access to research at their fingertips. That's the kind of change that this government supports as part of the shift that we are making from analogue to digital. One of the 3 shifts that will be covered in the 10-year plan being launched tomorrow, when more details will become clear. We're now moving to the territorial extent in Clause 4. Due to practical and legal differences between the nations, the devolved governments did not wish to legislate in their individual countries. Our manifesto promised to reset our relationship with the devolved governments, and we've developed this bill with them. I'm delighted that they've expressed their support at second reading. And the remaining clauses 5 to 6 show the commencement and title. The government is fully committed to supporting this bill through the next stages, so it can become the Rare Cancers Act of 2025. I want to... the Shadow Minister talked about the National Cancer Plan. I can confirm that that is being worked upon. We've had over 11,000 representations on that plan, and it will be published later this year, following the publication of the National 10-year Plan for Health tomorrow. The Children and Young People's Cancer Task Force was launched earlier this year, continues to meet, and has now ensured that young people and children's voices are a part of that task force. I will.
Thank you very much. And thank you for giving way, Minister. I hope that when the National Cancer Strategy is published, that part of its focus will be on boosting the survival rates for rare cancers. And can you confirm that that will be? So sorry. Could the Minister confirm that that will be a very important part of the National Cancer Strategy?
I thank the Honourable Member for his intervention and can confirm that the overall objective of the whole cancer plan will be saving lives and reducing the number of lives lost to cancer, including rare cancers. And that will be published later this year. In terms of other rare conditions, I think it's important to note that this bill is specific to cancer, and there will be other opportunities to discuss rare conditions in the future. I want to thank my honourable friend for presenting this bill, and I pay tribute to the charities who are backing him, some of which I've had the pleasure to meet with recently to discuss further how the government can better support people with rare cancers. And together, we will improve outcomes for people across our country, and I look forward to working with everybody to get this done.
Dr. Scott Arthur.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for all the contributions to the debate. The charity partners very carefully picked the people on the committee today through their interest in this subject, and I think we can see the benefit of that. So, and I do want to thank the member for South Antrim for the efforts he's made to make sure this works in Northern Ireland, and also for the comments from the member for Wokingham and Calder Valley, asking for more progress in this area generally. And of course I have to mention my colleague my honourable friend from Mitchell and Morden, and I attended a reception yesterday evening, and first and foremost, it was a fantastic celebration of your sister's fantastic life, and we should be grateful for her. And I wish Paul Mulholland and his team all the best with that trial, because it really did fill me with hope to hear that update from him. But my colleague did mention marathons, so at this point I also have to mention my daughter, Ruth Arthur, who run the marathon in Edinburgh for the Brain Tumour Charity and raised just over £3,000 in the memory of her grandfather, so I'm very proud of her. So, and for the opposition spokesperson, I'm really grateful for your comments and the insight you brought to this. Sorry? Oh, sorry. I'm really grateful for the honourable members' insight and the depth of thinking you brought to this.
She brought to this.
She has brought to this. Sorry.
Once it gets in your head,
I was up too late last night, I think. One of the best things about this journey has been the working with the DHSC team who are working on the cancer strategy and seeing how much they care about getting this right. And one of the things we've often reflected on is the point the Honourable Member made around diagnosis. Because too often we come to events in this place hosted by charities where they have somebody with life experience, and often late diagnosis is where that story starts, and often it's avoidable. And so I think it's fantastic that that's I think acknowledged by the cancer team in DHSC, and hopefully, particularly our GPs, will get more support to make sure those early signs aren't missed, and we join those dots together. And it's good to see the Minister nodding vigorously as I say that. And I do want to thank the Minister for her leadership right across this area and for her support for this bill in particular. So thank you. So in closing, Mr Chairman, I do want to thank all the members of the committee for coming along today and contributing. And as I've done also already, thank the civil servants who have helped draft this bill. If it passes, and I really hope it does, it will incentivise and create an environment where more research into rare cancers are fostered, potentially help us save, in the longer term, perhaps thousands of lives, and what an aspiration that is. So once again, Mr Chairman, I commend these clauses in the bill to the committee. Thank you.
Hey. The question is that Clause 1 stand part of the bill. As many are of that opinion, say aye. Aye. Of the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. With the leave of the committee, I will put a single question on clauses 2 to 6 stand part, which have just been debated. The question is that the clauses 2 to 6 stand part of the bill. As many are of that opinion, say aye. Aye. Of the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The final question I must put is that I do report the bill to the House. The question is that I do report the bill to the House. As many are of that opinion, say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Order, order.